Welcome to Claude Code, from zero to productive. Over the coming lessons, you'll gain practical, hands-on skills to truly master AI-driven development. Let's take a moment to look at exactly what you'll achieve by the end of this course, starting with our first key objective. First, you will adopt a director-level mindset for orchestrating AI-driven coding tasks. This means you'll move beyond simple prompting to strategically direct AI, ensuring it delivers exactly what you need for your projects. Next, you'll gain confidence in setting up your environment and interpreting the Claude Code interface effectively. You'll quickly become proficient with the tools, making your initial steps smooth and productive. You'll also learn to strategically manage context, guiding the AI toward precise and relevant solutions every time. This skill is crucial for avoiding irrelevant outputs and achieving your desired results efficiently. Building on that, you will construct powerful prompts using structured components and examples. You'll learn the techniques to craft queries that unlock Claude's full potential, leading to more accurate and complete code. Before we dive into implementing these powerful strategies and building efficiently, let's quickly review a few foundational elements to ensure you're fully prepared. This will guarantee a smooth setup and learning experience as you begin your journey with Claude Code. First, let's consider your comfort with basic terminal commands. You'll want to feel comfortable with basic terminal commands. This means you should be able to navigate folders, copy files, and execute scripts without any trouble. Don't worry, we won't be doing anything overly complex here, just the essentials. Next, you'll need to have Node.js version 18 or higher installed on your machine. We'll rely on Node.js to easily install and run Claude Code, providing the necessary environment for our projects. If you don't have it yet, it's a quick and easy install. Finally, to unlock the full power of Claude Code and access the underlying Anthropic API, a Claude Pro or Max subscription is essential for this course. This subscription ensures you have the necessary access to the advanced AI models that drive all our coding tasks. Without it, you won't be able to generate code effectively using Claude. See you in the next lecture. Welcome. This lecture will show you how to get the most out of Claude Code. You're about to see a big change in how you use AI. First, you'll learn about the key change from being a typist to a director when using Claude Code. This means understanding that you're not just writing code anymore, but guiding an AI agent to achieve a clear goal. Next, you'll define what agentic really means for AI tools like Claude Code. Understanding this idea is important to use these smart systems effectively. As we go on, you'll learn how to describe results, not just steps, in your prompts. This skill helps Claude Code get the results you want more quickly and accurately. Finally, you'll use this director mindset to write really good prompts for Claude Code. By mastering this, you'll be able to do amazing things with AI. Before, you might have felt like a typist, doing every command yourself. You wrote code line by line with every detail. You focused on the how, given every exact step, but there's a better way to use AI to get more done. Now think of yourself as a director. You're not telling it how anymore, but defining what you want to happen. You're in charge of the results, setting the vision and standards. Claude Code, your smart agent, handles the details for you, making your vision real. Now that you're a director, how specific should you be? Let's see why giving clear directions is key to working well with an AI agent like Claude. Claude is a powerful helper that can do complex work, but it's also very literal. It takes your words exactly as they are, without guessing what you really mean. Claude will do exactly what you say in your prompts. It won't guess what you hoped for or what you meant to ask. The quality of Claude's work depends on what you tell it. Clear instructions lead to good results, like a film director needing to be specific to get the perfect scene. Now that you know how important your instructions are, let's see how Claude Code uses them. We'll look at the agentic workflow to see how Claude processes your ideas. Let's start with the first step. It starts with your prompt. You're defining what you want Claude Code to do, setting the stage for everything else. After your prompt, Claude reads files, it gathers info, understanding your projects to make sure its work fits in. Knowing your task and projects, Claude writes code. it creates the solution, making your directions real with its coding skills. But Claude also runs tests. This makes sure that the changes work as you want them to, catching problems early. Finally, Claude reports back to you, telling you what it did. You get a summary of the work, confirming that your idea has been done right. Knowing how Claude works, it's important to describe results, not just steps. If you think like a typist, you might write a prompt with every step, like create a function called handle submits. It should take an events parameter, then call prevent defaults, then console log the form data. This controls all the details, limiting Claude's abilities and putting all the work on you. But as a director, you'll describe the results from the user's view. You could say, when the user submits the form, validate the inputs, and if valid, add the new task to the list without refreshing the page. This lets Claude make smart choices using its agentic nature and letting you focus on the what. Look at this simple to-do list application that we'll use as our code starting point. It has an inputs field, an add button, and some tasks with checkboxes and delete buttons. Let's add a new task. I'll type have a walk and click add to see it on the list. You can also mark tasks as done by checking the boxes. Finally, you can delete tasks. This shows the basic things you can do in this application. These will be important as we learn more. Now that you're a director, let's see what your job really is. It's about overseeing the whole process, not getting stuck in details. And it has 3 steps to guide Claude well. Let's start with the first one. Your main job as a director is to define the outcome. Say exactly what should exist or work after Claude is done, focusing on the final result, not how to get there. Next, you need to set the constraints. Set the rules for Claude, like the text tag, coding styles, or files to avoid. This makes sure Claude fits into your project structure and standards. Finally, you review and decide. You're in charge of quality. Claude will suggest solutions, and you check them, accepting, rejecting, or asking for changes until it's perfect. This is where you have the final say. You've learned some important things today about this big change. Let's recap the main ideas to help you understand this new director mindset. We'll start with the first key understanding. You now know the change from being a typist, writing code line by line, to a director guiding an AI agent. You've moved from the how to the what, leading the development. You also know about agentic behavior, seeing how Claude Code takes charge and makes smart decisions based on your directions. This is what makes it powerful and efficient. You've learned to describe results, not steps, in your prompts. By focusing on the end result, you let Claude use its intelligence to find the best way. Finally, you know the director's 3 jobs: defining the outcome, setting constraints, and reviewing Claude's work. These are your keys to success, making you ready to take charge. This session will give you the basic skills to set up your environment for Claude Code. Let's see what you'll do. First, you'll learn to install Claude Code correctly as a Node.js command line tool. This makes sure your environment is ready for AI agent work. Next, you'll initialize a Git repository and make your project's first commit. This gives you version control, so you're in control from the start. You'll then learn 4 Git commands for managing changes made by an AI agent. These commands help you oversee your digital assistant. You'll learn when to use the dangerously skip permissions flag and, more importantly, when to avoid it. This helps you make safe and informed choices. Finally, you'll create a basic CLAUDE.md file and learn how it affects Claude Code's behavior. This file is how you direct your AI agent to succeed. Now that you know about the CLAUDE.md file, let's get your system ready. Before installing Claude Code, you need to have Node.js. You need Node.js version 18 or higher. Claude Code is a command line tool, and Node.js lets it run. If you don't have it, download the latest long-term support version from nodejs.org. With Node.js installed, you can install Claude Code. Open your terminal and run the command you see. This uses npm, the Node package manager, to install Anthropic AI Claude Code globally. The G flag installs it globally, so you can run the Claude command from any directory. It downloads and sets up everything for Claude Code to work. After running the install command, check that Claude Code is installed correctly. Type Claude version in your terminal. If it worked, you'll see the version number. If you get an error, check your Node.js version, as that's often the problem. Now that Claude Code is installed, let's talk about how you'll use it. You have two ways to direct your AI agents, and your choice affects what you see and learn. The first way, which we'll use today, is the terminal. With the terminal, you see everything, every tool call and every file Claude touches. There's also a VS Code extension for a more integrated experience. This puts Claude Code in your editor, which is convenient for working alongside other tasks. The terminal approach gives you direct feedback. Seeing the process helps you understand how the agent thinks and works. The extension is good for quick tasks, but it hides some details. Because it simplifies the process, we'll start with the terminal to build a strong base. As we build that base for directing your AI agents, you need to understand Git. It's essential for controlling and keeping your projects safe. Let's see why Git is so important. Remember, Claude Code is designed to be proactive. It will write new files, change existing ones, and maybe even delete things to solve problems. Imagine Claude makes a change you don't want or deletes something important. Without Git, you can't easily undo those changes, and you could lose work. With Git, that worry goes away. You can undo everything Claude did with one command, giving you control and a safety net for your projects. Before using Claude Code on any project, you must first create a clean starting point using Git. In your projects directory, run git init to start a new Git repository. Then git add stages all your current files, preparing them for the commit. Finally, git commit with a commit message makes your project's first commit. This creates a stable start for your project, a snapshot you can always go back to before Claude makes changes. You've now made a stable start for your projects using Git. To manage changes from Claude Code, you need a few commands. These 4 Git commands give you control and peace of mind. Let's start with the first one. First, git add stages all your current changes, getting them ready for the next commit. This tells Git which changes you want to save in your next snapshot. Once your changes are staged, git commit with a message saves a snapshot of your work. Always commit before starting a new Claude Code session, so you can always go back to a known good state. When you need to review Claude's work, git diff is useful. It shows you exactly what changes have been made since your last commit, so you can see what the agents did. Finally, git checkout is your undo button if things go wrong or you want to discard Claude's suggestions. It discards all uncommitted changes, reverting your files to your last commit. Let's talk about the dangerously skip permissions flag. This tells Claude Code to stop asking for permission before running commands or editing files. It does everything without asking. The name warns you that using it wrong can cause problems. It's powerful, but be careful. You need to know when to use it and when not to. You have the knowledge, so let's look at when it's safe to use. Use this flag in temporary environments like cloud sandboxes, Docker containers, or local experiments. In these safe places, you can experiment knowing that any changes can be discarded without affecting your main projects. Never use it on your real development machine, production systems, or projects with sensitive data. Using this flag in these places is risky and could cause data loss or security problems. It's a powerful tool for speed, but the danger is using it in the wrong place. Be careful and make sure you use it safely for your current projects. So how do you manage permissions with Claude Code? The best way is to skip some prompts but require approval for others. You can do this with allow lists. With allow lists, you can allow save actions automatically, but still confirm anything risky. This gives you most of the speed and most of the safety, so you don't have to choose between everything or nothing. Finally, let's prepare the Claude.md file. This is a markdown file where you give Claude Code context, rules, and instructions. It's read at the start of each session, so having it ensures Claude always has some guidance. Describe your projects, list your technologies and rules, and say how Claude should check its changes, like running tests. Now that you've made your Claude.md file, let's add it to your project's Git history. Run git add Claude.md to stage the new file, then commit it with a message. This makes the instruction file part of your project's version control, ready for Claude to use. Now that you've added your instruction file to version control, you've done a lot of setup. You've prepared your environment to work with Claude Code safely and well. Let's review what you've done, starting with the first step. First, you installed Claude Code globally with npm, so you can use it from any project. This gets the tool ready to use anywhere. Next, you initialized your project as a Git repository with a first commit. This gives you a safety net so you can always go back to a good state. You also learn Git commands like add, commit, diff, and checkout. These give you control over changes from the AI agent, so you can manage your projects confidently. You now know when to use and when not to use the dangerously skip permissions flag. This helps you balance speed with safety for your project. And finally, you created the Claude.md file, setting up how to direct Claude's actions. With this, Claude will always have context and instructions, even if it's just placeholders. In this lesson, you'll learn to understand the cues Claude provides, giving you more control over your AI interactions. Let's get started. First, you'll learn to spot the Claude Code spinner and know what it means. This gives you a visual cue about Claude's status. Next, you'll learn to read the tool use notifications Claude gives as it works. This lets you follow Claude's actions and understand its progress. You'd also learn how to respond to the permission prompts when Claude needs to run commands. Being comfortable with these responses ensures smooth, secure collaboration. We'd also learn to recognize the cost indicators shown after Claude responds. This helps you manage your interactions efficiently. You'd also master interrupting a Claude Code session cleanly using the escape key. This gives you immediate control. Finally, you'll learn the difference between a clean interrupt and closing the terminal, giving you full control over Claude Code. This is key to becoming a power user. First, let's make sure your progress from the last lesson is saved. Run these commands. This saves any changes you've made before we start using Claude. To start, I'll open the terminal and go to our project's root directory. To use Claude Code effectively, always launch it from your project's root. This ensures Claude sees all your files, including Claude.md and package.json, for the best results. Once in the root, just type Claude into your terminal to start. After pressing enter, the Claude Code interface will load, showing a welcome message, your model, and a clean input line. At the bottom is the prompt input, which may show a previous command. This is where you'll type instructions for Claude. Let's tell Claude to add a character counter below the task input field. When you hit enter, you'll see Claude start planning, shown by the spinner, and increasing time and token count. Claude is planning how to fulfill your request. It's reading your prompt, loading your Claude.md, and deciding what to do. No files have been changed yet. As it plans, Claude reads your project files and lists directories like source/app.jsx and source/task-input.jsx. This helps Claude understand your codebase. Claude then suggests code changes in source/task-input.jsx, showing them as a div with additions in green and deletions in red. It asks for permission to make these changes. Let's accept the changes. After the edit, Claude summarizes the changes, saying the character counter has been added. It also shows how long it took. With the task done, the input line is ready for your next command. Claude even suggests a new goal: add a character limit. You can now type git diff in a second terminal. This git command shows any changes you've made that haven't been committed. If you want to stay in the Claude Code interface, you can run git diff by adding an exclamation mark. The terminal shows the output of git diff, showing the changes to source/task-input.jsx. Minus signs in red show deletions and plus signs in green show additions. Now let's tell Claude to add a maximum character limit. Watch Claude plan and read files to understand your code before suggesting changes. Claude shows a diff of the code changes, highlighting additions in green. Let's accept the changes. After the changes, Claude suggests running the dev server and asks for permission again. You can approve once, deny, or always allow this command. Let's accept running it. Once you allow it, Claude runs the command, and you'll see the dev server start. It confirms the server is running and gives a status update. Claude summarizes the task, noting the character limits and updated counter display. You can now move on. You're at the prompt, ready for your next command, with the previous summary visible. Start typing /context. See how the system suggests commands as you type. After pressing enter, Claude shows it's processing with a dilly-dallying message. Now the context usage indicator shows how much of the context window you've used, broken down by system prompt, tools, and memory files. The context usage panel helps you understand how Claude manages its memory. Here you see the model in use, Sonnet 4.6. Below the model name is a token usage grid. Each field icon represents a portion of the tokens. The summary is 20.4K out of 200K tokens, 10%. This means you are using 20,400 tokens out of 200,000. Tokens are units of text the AI processes, showing how much information Claude is holding for our conversation. Next, the estimated usage by category breakdown shows where the 20.4K tokens are going. System prompt tokens. These tokens are for Claude's basic instructions. System tools tokens. This is for the tools Claude uses to interact, like reading, writing files, or running commands. Memory files tokens. A small amount of memory files. This is the CLAUDE.md file with custom instructions. Skills tokens. These tokens are for custom skills or functions. Messages tokens. This is for our conversation history. Free space. This is the remaining capacity, meaning Claude has plenty of room left. Auto compacts buffer, 33,000 tokens. This is a reserve for when Claude summarizes all the conversation parts. And in memory files, you see details about Claude.md using 26 tokens. This is where we put project context for Claude. Finally, skills via /skills lists the custom functions Claude can use. As the prompt, you can see options to view shortcuts or commands. This lets you explore the CLI's capabilities. As you type /diff, the CLI suggests matching commands. This helps you find the right command quickly. Running /diff shows an overview of your uncommitted changes, including additions and deletions. Now watch as I enter a prompt to refactor the app, breaking components into folders. The prompt is submitted and Claude starts planning. Notice the spinner changing. If Claude does something wrong, hit escape once. Claude stops, but the session stays open. Don't use Ctrl+C, which closes the terminal. Use Ctrl+C only to exit Claude Code completely, not just pause. After interrupting, enter a new prompt. You can also press escape once while typing to clear the input. If the input box is empty, pressing escape twice rewinds. This steps back through your conversation. You'll be asked to confirm the rewind and choose to restore code, conversation, or both. We'll revert to a previous conversation state without changing code, but you can test restore code and conversation. After confirming, the conversation and optionally code is restored. This is how our app looks. You've seen Claude make a real change in a codebase, and you tracked its progress. Let's review those key signals so you can read the interface confidently. First, remember the animation that starts with everything. The Claude spinner means Claude is processing your request. It's planning actions before changing files. As Claude executes, you'll see tool use notifications. You can understand which files Claude is using, whether reading or writing. Then the permission prompts ask for your approval before running commands. You can approve, deny, or always allow actions staying in control. After Claude's responses, the cost indicators show token usage. You can monitor these numbers for efficient resource management. You've also learned to interrupt cleanly using escape. You can pause Claude anytime, knowing your session stays intact. And to undo a bad response, double tap escape on an empty prompt to rewind. This removes the last turn, letting you reprompt and guide Claude correctly. You have good tools for managing dialogue. In this session, you learn how to handle Claude's most important resource. We'll make sure you begin using AI efficiently and cost effectively. Let's see what you learn. First, you learn what the context window is and why it's key for using Claude well. Knowing this will help you use AI more strategically. Next, you learn to check your context usage. This helps you watch your session's efficiency. You'll then see the difference between the /compact and /clear commands, knowing when to use each for the best results. These tools give you control over your sessions. Also, you'll learn to avoid the common kitchen sink session mistake from day one. This saves you time and effort. Finally, you'll use a one task, one context method, making sure your Claude Code sessions are reliable and cheap. You'll finish with a strong base for success. To build that strong base, we must start with the key idea. So, what is the context window? Let's look at this step by step. First, Claude works with a fixed size context window. This window holds all the info for your current session. It's the short-term memory. Think of it as your workspace, like a desk holding your prompts, Claude's answers, files read, and commands run. This workspace fills up. Each interaction takes up space, and the longer you run the session, the more cluttered it gets. This clutter affects performance. To make room, old context gets compressed or dropped, leading to mistakes and bad answers. Because it affects performance, checking your context is key. Think of it as a context health gauge with 3 zones. Let's see what each zone means. First, the green zone, 0 to 70% usage, is best. Claude has room to work, so you can interact without worrying. This is ideal. Next, the amber zone, 70 to 90%, means Claude can still work, but context is tight. Run the /compact command before your next task to free space. This keeps things smooth. Finally, the red zone, 90% or more, means context is full. Stop, commit your work, and run /clear because continuing is inefficient. Clear your workspace to reset. You learned about context zones and what to do in each. Now, let's look at /compact and /clear. Knowing the difference is key, so let's start with their purpose. The first difference is their purpose. /compact summarizes all parts of your conversation to free space, like tidying a desk. /clear wipes your conversation, starting you fresh. Next, think about how each affects your session. With /compact, your session continues, keeping your context. But /clear makes Claude forget everything, resetting you to 0. Knowing when to use each is important. Use /compact in the amber zone when you need room to continue. Use /clear in the red zone when switching tasks or when you need to reset. Now that you know /compact and /clear, it's important to know a common mistake beginners make. This can ruin your context efforts. Let's look at the first error and how to avoid it. This is the kitchen sink session, where you pile too many tasks into one long Claude Code session. Claude acts strange, gives bad answers, or undoes fixes because the context is too full. Always use one task, one context, treating each session as a focused block before clearing context. To use one task, one context well and manage your context, let's look at the steps you should follow for each Claude Code session. These habits keep things focused. Let's start with the first step. Your first step is to define one clear objective. Before you open Claude Code, ask, what do I want to do right now? Focusing improves outcomes. Next, commit your work to Git before a new Claude Code session. This gives you a rollback point, protecting your progress. With your objective and code committed, run Claude and work through the task. Use Claude Code's power to reach your goal. When Claude finishes, review the changes, maybe using git diff. If you're happy, commit the changes. Finally, if your next task is unrelated, run the /clear command. This starts you fresh, preventing context bloat and setting you up for good performance. Before a new Claude Code session, save your progress. Run git add to stage changes, then git commit to save them to your repository. This ensures you have a rollback point before opening Claude Code. Let's check context usage in our current session to show it clearly. To do this, we'll open Claude Code and select our React project session. Here you see a list of recent sessions, and we'll resume the one for our React project. We've added a character counter to the task input field, tested the limits, and interrupted a refactor. To see our context usage, we'll type /context. Watch how the available commands narrow as I type. And now, to check our context, Claude is analyzing our session history to show its context usage. Here's our context usage. It's used 9% of the 200,000 token window, with system tools and messages using the most. Imagine we kept going for 2 hours without checking. To avoid the red zone, let's use /compact. Claude is summarizing the older parts of our conversation. The conversation has been compacted, freeing up context. Let's ask Claude to summarize the changes we made to see how it works. Claude is processing our request with its optimized context. Even after compacting, Claude remembers its changes, like adding the character counter. If we were happy, we'd commit these changes. Now to show resetting the conversation, we'll use the /clear command. The context has been cleared. This is like starting a new session. Even after clearing the context, your command history is still there, which helps remember past actions. Let's ask about the changes we made again. Claude is reevaluating. Since we cleared the context, Claude shows the clean working tree and our git commits, showing our project history. It says that despite the git history, no changes were made in this session because we used /clear. This shows the complete reset. To finish, remember that managing your context is key to good interactions with Claude Code. You have tools like /compact and /clear, but what if your context fills up without you noticing? Let's see how Claude Code's safety net works. First, Claude Code has automatic compaction. If your context gets too high, it compresses all the parts. This stops your session from stopping. This is reactive, not proactive. It only acts when the context is already critical. So think of it as a last resort. It's for emergencies. Trust it to catch you, but don't rely on it. Your management is better. Auto compaction can still make the model's answers worse because it's compressing under pressure. You've seen all of context management from its nature to taking control. Let's put this knowledge into a clear summary of what you've learned. Let's start with the key idea. First, you know what the context window is, Claude's memory. You learn to see it as your desk, knowing its limits and why managing it is key. You found the 3 context health zones, green, amber, and red, giving you a model for your context status. You now know /compact for summarizing and /clear for resetting. You know when to use each, giving you control over your interactions. You can avoid kitchen sink sessions where too much is crammed in. You know its bad effects on Claude's performance. Finally, you have a workflow for focus sessions using the one task, one context habit. This includes defining a task, committing changes, executing, reviewing, and clearing context. Today we learn how to code with Claude, setting up a strong, safe workflow. By the end, you'll be ready to tackle your first project, starting with our initial goal. First, you learn to turn a general feature idea into a focus prompt. This is key for guiding Claude and getting the exact results you want. Next, you learn to use Git to make a starting commit before coding. This gives you a safe start, letting you experiment without worry. Then, you'll review all AI-generated code changes using git diff before accepting. This helps you keep the code quality high and understand every line Claude suggests. If things go wrong, you'll also learn to undo changes with git checkout to reset a session. This means you can always start over or fix mistakes easily. Finally, you'll use the commit prompt diff accept revert workflow every time. This will be the base for all your future Claude Code tasks, making you a confident developer. Before we open Claude Code or even think about the prompt, we commit. First, we stage all current changes in our projects. Then, we make a clear commit. This commit is your restore point. Whatever Claude does, you can come back to this point. This is crucial. Every session starts with this safety step. With your safe commit ready, your next step is defining the task for Claude. Many start with a broad instruction like add filtering to the to-do app, but this is too vague, often leading to unexpected results. Instead, be specific and focus on the outcome in your prompts. This precise prompt defines a filter bar with options like all, active, and completed, detailing how it works and looks. It even sets rules like avoiding new dependencies to guide Claude well. This detail helps Claude deliver exactly what you want, getting you the right results the first time. With our precise prompts ready, let's open Claude and give the instructions. It starts by loading your session and showing recent activity. Let's give Claude a clear brief and it will start thinking about the task, processing your requests, and looking at the project. As Claude starts, watch the tool use notifications. You'll see it's reading your components, showing it understands your projects before making changes. Claude then makes a plan based on what it knows, outlining the changes it will make. Let it do this without stopping it. Now check the changes in the diff viewer. This is your chance to look at its work and make sure it's what you expect. After checking, you can accept the changes to add Claude's work to your projects. Claude gives a short summary of the task, detailing the changes it's made to your files. This helps you quickly understand what happened in the session. To finish the session and make a new restore point, always commit your changes with a good message after accepting Claude's work. As Claude works, remember it might stop to ask for details, which is good. It shows Claude is thinking hard about your prompt, making sure it gives you what you need. Look at the question Claude might ask here. Here, Claude asks you, should the filter states persist if the page reloads, or is in memory fine? Claude wants your input, showing it's thinking about details and wants to meet your needs. This is a key moment to guide it. Your answer should be short and clear, like in memory is fine. This gives Claude the info it needs to move forward without confusion. By answering clearly, you'll help Claude do your task well. Before moving on, check every change Claude made. Running git diff shows what lines were added and what lines were removed, letting you inspect it carefully. As you look through the diff, you can see Claude changed app.jsx to add the filter states and made a new filter bar component. This helps you confirm that all changes match your expectations and the prompts you gave. You can type git diff in a separate terminal outside Claude command line so that it displays changes in color. After carefully checking the diff, you have to decide whether to use the work or start over. Let's see what to do in each case. First, if every change looks right and matches your prompt, you can accept Claude's work. But if you see anything wrong or confusing, you should reject the changes. This check is a key part of the process. To accept the work, you first stage the changes. You can do this with git add, which tells Git to include all the changes in the next snapshot of your project. To reject the work, you can use git checkout to instantly undo all the changes Claude made. Once staged, you save the good work by committing it with a clear message. This makes a new restore point in your project's history that includes Claude's work. The revert command takes you back to your last commit, as if the session never happened. This gives you a fresh start to change your prompts and try again without cleaning up. Once the good work is staged and you save it by making a new commit with a clear message, this finishes Claude's work, making a new restore point in your project's history that includes all the accepted changes. Now that you know how to decide after reviewing your diff, you're ready to use this process every time. This is the Claude Code workflow, which you'll use for every session. Let's look at the first step. The first step, commit, is your safety net. Before you even start with Claude, you'll make a restore point with Git. This makes sure that you can always go back to a good state. Next, you'll focus on the prompt, make specific prompts, including any rules about files or dependencies. This helps Claude give you accurate results. The third step is diff. You'll check every change Claude suggests using git diff. This makes sure you understand and agree with every change before adding it to your project. Finally, we have accept or revert the decision you just learned. If the changes are good, you commit them. If anything is wrong, you use git checkout to go back to a clean state, ready to change your prompts and try again. Let's test our app. To get ready for filtering, let's mark one task as complete. Notice how checking the box crosses out the task, showing it's done. Now click the active filter to show only the tasks that are still in progress. You'll see the completed task is hidden. Next, switch to the completed filter. This shows only the tasks you finished, showing how filtering works. Finally, click all to see every task again. Notice how the selected filter button is highlighted as we said in the prompt. You just finished your first Claude Code task, taking a vague idea and making it real in your app. Now, let's review what you learned and make sure you're ready for your future projects. Let's start by looking at the base you set up. First, you made sure your project had a strong Git base. You started a repository and made that important commit before asking Claude for code, giving you a safety net for every session. Next, you learn to sharpen prompts, turning a general idea into a clear, focused prompt. This, along with adding rules, helps Claude give you the results you want. Then you carefully checked Claude's work with code review using git diff. You made sure to look at every AI-generated change before even thinking about accepting it. You also learned to reverse cleanly, knowing how to use git checkout to undo any unwanted changes. This makes sure no damage is done and lets you try things without fear. And finally, you set up the git loop. This commit, prompt, diff, accept, or revert workflow will now be your process for every coding session. Welcome. We're about to learn powerful techniques to make your coding smarter and more efficient. By the end of this lecture, you'll master the CLAUDE.md file, changing how you work with projects and AI. Let's see what you learn. First, you'll find out what main kinds of info should go in a CLAUDE.md file and why. This is key to making good files and making sure you get all the important details. Next, you'll learn to tell apart and use the 3 levels of CLAUDE.md files for control across big projects. This will help you handle even hard coding tasks easily. Then you'll be able to make a first CLAUDE.md draft using the /init command. This means you can start your docs fast and save time from the start. You will also integrate layer-specific documentation using the /docs approach to provide targeted context. This ensures that the right information is always available exactly when and where you need it, enriching your understanding at every level. Crucially, you'll establish the correction habit by updating CLAUDE.md after every mistake, ensuring continuous learning. This practice transforms every error into an opportunity for your next session to be even smarter. Finally, you'll use the /memory command to check and edit CLAUDE.md files while coding. This direct access lets you keep your docs up to date without stopping your work. To help Claude make your sessions smarter, we need to know what info should be in your CLAUDE.md file. There are 3 main types to focus on, each helping Claude understand and act. Let's start with the first type. The first type, project stack, is where you list the technologies, frameworks, and libraries Claude needs to know about your project. This also includes commands like npm run dev or npm run test. This context helps Claude work with your code. Next, we have conventions, which keep your project consistent. Here, you'll write down your team's rules for file naming, component structure, and coding styles. This makes sure Claude writes code that fits in with your existing code. Finally, critical rules are things you can't break and past mistakes that Claude must not repeat. This is very powerful, and it makes sure Claude learns from errors and avoids bad habits. You'll add to this over time, making Claude smarter and more reliable. We're starting with the CLAUDE.md file in our projects, which you can make using the /init command. You'll see how Claude figures out the project's type and the technologies used. Claude has also correctly found the commands to run the app and tests and the main conventions of this React project for consistency. But the critical rules section is empty now. This is on purpose. We'll fill it in later. This is where you add your knowledge. You'll fill this section over time, building a memory for Claude based on your project needs. We'll come back to this later. To build and use that memory for Claude across big projects, you'll use a 3-level system. This gives you control over how Claude works in different situations, making sure it has the right info. Let's start with the global level. At the global level, you set your personal preferences and coding style rules that apply to every project. This file in your home folder sets your default Claude settings. Next, the project's root Claude.md is at the base of your projects folder. This file has all the rules, conventions, and stack details for that project. Finally, local or subfolder Claude.md files have rules that only apply to their folder, like in a source folder. These rules are the most precise, overriding project rules, which override global rules. Let's look at the UI.md file, which sets the UI conventions for this project, including rules for layout and colors. You'll find details on border styles for elements and transition times for interactive parts. The file also lists the component structure of the app and gives steps for adding new components. Now let's switch to datafetching.md to see the data and state rules, starting with the shape of our task objects. This section shows how tasks are saved to local storage with a lazy initializer for useState and a useEffect hook to keep state changes in sync. You can see the main task actions like adding, toggling, and deleting tasks, which are passed as callbacks, and the filtering logic. Finally, the doc says what's not done yet, like API calls or optimistic updates. Let's set up version control. Run these commands to start fresh. This will let us track AI changes and undo them if needed. Let's add a task completion sound. We want a short, nice beep when a user marks a task as done. Claude starts to look at the request and the code to see where to add this feature. First, Claude looks at the code structure. It sees source/app.jsx as important. After more checking, Claude keeps working to find all needed files. Claude finds another key file, source/components/task-item.jsx. It checks the content of both task-item.jsx and app.jsx. Claude is now planning its approach, deciding how to do it. I'll use the Web Audio API to make a beep, so no audio file is needed. The sound will play only when a task goes from active to done. The best place for this is in the toggle task function in app.jsx. Here are the changes for app.jsx. It adds the play complete sound function. Claude is making the new code, adding the audio. The sound plays when a task is checked using the Web Audio API to make a tone. A new audio context is made each time to avoid browser issues. Claude has added the sound and is thinking about the details. It also thinks about adding tests to make sure the audio works. Now I tell Claude that the audio numbers should be moved out of the component. Claude is checking the code again to get ready to move the audio numbers. It plans to move the play complete sound function into a new source/utils/audio.js file. Claude will make the audio.js file, move the function there, and then connect it to task-item.jsx. Claude gets ready to make the new file and move the audio logic. Here is the new audio.js file with the play complete sound function ready to be used. Claude is asking to make the audio.js file with these things. The audio.js file is now written, separating the audio from the main component. Now Claude will update task-item.jsx to use play complete sound and clean up app.jsx. Here are the changes for task-item.jsx using play complete sound and calling it in a new handle toggle function. Claude is changing task-item.jsx, adding the audio and updating the event handler. Next, Claude will remove the play complete sound function from app.jsx. The app.jsx file is cleaner now. Claude is finishing the cleanup in app.jsx. The audio numbers and play complete sound are now in source/utils/audio.js. Claude also suggests testing the play complete sound function. Now we need to update Claude.md to say to always move magic numbers into utility files. Claude is adding this to your project's Claude.md. It's reading the Claude.md file. Claude is checking the current CLAUDE.md file. Here is the update to our MD file, adding a rule to always move magic numbers into utility files. Now Claude saves this new rule as feedback. This will apply to future chats. The rule has been added to CLAUDE.md and saved as memory. We can say that Claude has finished the task and updated its knowledge. Now let's commit these changes, run git add and git commit with a message to save our new feature and that updated rule. This makes it a part of our project history, ensuring Claude remembers it. If you need to quickly check or edit your Claude.md files, just type /memory. This command shows your memory files in the terminal, like project's memory and user memory. You can then pick a memory file to read or edit, saving changes. It's useful for quick changes. Claude.md is a living thing that changes your projects. At the start, it's a simple skeleton. You can make it using the /init command, but by the end, it's a record of all your project knowledge. This record has every convention, every decision, and every mistake you've avoided. It's a memory of your project's life. This helps new developers join your projects easily. It makes sure both your AI and team members understand the rules. So commit it and keep it up to date like your code. It's project's infrastructure. You've learned how Claude.md becomes a key part of your projects. Let's remember what you've learned and the main ideas. Let's start with what goes in the file. You know what info to put in your Claude.md file. This has everything from project technologies and commands to your team's coding styles. You also know about the 3 levels for Claude.md files. This lets you use global settings, project rules, and local rules for control over Claude. And it's easy to start. The /init command can make a first draft of your Claude.md file. For big projects, you can add layer-specific docs in a /docs folder. By linking these files in your Claude.md, you make sure Claude finds the right info. Most importantly, you'll update Claude.md after every mistake. This stops Claude from repeating errors. Finally, you have the /memory command. This lets you check and edit your Claude.md files in your coding session. Welcome to the anatomy of a great prompt. By the end of this lesson, you'll gain practical skills that will transform how you interact with AI. Let's start by looking at the first key skill you'll develop. First, you'll confidently construct powerful prompts using the 4 core ingredients: context, task, constraints, and output format. Mastering these building blocks will make your prompts incredibly effective. Next, you'll understand why many beginner prompts often fall short and, more importantly, how to easily fix them with specific targeted additions. These insights will save you a lot of trial and error. Then you'll learn a super useful trick: how to use your existing files as live examples for Claude, directly referencing them with the handy art syntax. This feature will streamline your workflow like never before. Furthermore, you'll develop the crucial habit of writing negative constraints, which are excellent for clearly guiding Claude's behavior and refining its output. This approach helps prevent common AI pitfalls. Finally, you'll know how to challenge Claude's outputs effectively, ensuring you consistently achieve more elegant, verified, and superior results. You're going to build some truly effective prompts and elevate your AI interactions. And at the heart of every successful interaction with Claude lies a well-crafted prompt, carefully constructed from 4 essential ingredients. These powerful elements give you the ability to guide Claude precisely towards the outcome you desire. Let's start by looking at the first crucial element: context. This is everything Claude needs to understand about the current situation before it can even begin to act. Think about the project state, any relevant file details, or existing user flows. You're essentially setting the scene for Claude. Once Claude understands the context, you define the task. This is what you actually want Claude to achieve, always described as a clear outcome. Remember, focus on the desired result you're aiming for, not the step-by-step instructions on how to get there. Next, we'll establish the constraints. These are the crucial rules and boundaries that Claude must operate within while completing its task. This means telling Claude what it absolutely can't use, what areas it must not touch, or any elements it simply cannot break. Finally, you specify the output format. This dictates exactly how you want Claude to deliver its result to you. Do you need a single function, a complete component, an explanation before any code, or perhaps just a detailed plan? Let's look at a common pitfall. You might instinctively write a weak prompt like add a due date to tasks. This brevity leaves Claude with too many unknowns, forcing it to make guesses that often don't align with your project specifics. You'll quickly find yourself needing to refine its output if you don't provide proper guidance. For the same goal, see how this strong prompt utilizes every ingredient. You provide essential context about the app, clearly define the task, specify constraints like using existing libraries, and dictate the precise output format. This level of detail eliminates guesswork, ensuring Claude delivers exactly what you need on the first try. That strong prompt was effective because it included all four ingredients, but of those four, context is the one people leave out most often. So why is this critical ingredient so frequently skipped? Let's explore the common pitfalls together. The main reason comes down to implicit assumptions. You might think that's because you've been working in the same session, Claude automatically understands your project state and its patterns, but that's a risky assumption to make. These assumptions cause crucial details to go missing from your prompts. When a task touches multiple components or relies on established patterns, you have to explicitly tell Claude where it is so it can act correctly and stay aligned with your codebase. To fix this, adopt the new developer rule as a default habit. Before you write your task, simply ask yourself, what would a brand new developer need to know to get this right? The answer to that question is the exact context you need to provide. Let's start by instructing Claude to create a new component, task note, which will display a read-only note. Critically, you reference task-item.jsx and task-item.module.css directly with the @ symbol, showing Claude the exact structural and styling patterns to follow. Claude immediately begins its work, reading the actual code from the referenced task item files. This step ensures it fully understands the existing conventions before generating any new code. Now Claude proposes the new task-node.jsx file, generating a functional component that imports its own CSS module, and it's structured to receive a node prop, just like your task item example. Following the same pattern, Claude then presents tasknodes.module.css with styling rules for .node and .text classes. It automatically applies display properties, spacing, and colors consistent with your existing task item components. Finally, Claude confirms the creation of both files and explains how it adheres to the specific conventions from naming exports and handling props to mirroring CSS module imports and class names. This demonstrates how a single file reference provides more detailed guidance than several paragraphs of instructions. We've just seen how to show Claude what to do using explicit examples. Now let's talk about another crucial aspect of guiding Claude, telling it what not to do. This is where negative constraints come in, acting as essential guardrails to keep Claude on the right path. Let's start by looking at why these are so important. As you can see, Claude is trained on vast amounts of code, and without specific guidance, it will often default to the most common patterns it has seen. This means if you don't explicitly tell it otherwise, its default behavior might not align with your project's unique structure or needs. You need to proactively override these defaults to get truly tailored results. To prevent these misalignments, you must explicitly state what Claude absolutely must not do. Think of actions like installing new libraries, modifying existing schemas, or touching sensitive files. These are perfect candidates for negative constraints. This creates a clear fence around Claude's actions, keeping it within safe boundaries. The key is to make writing these guardrails a default habit for yourself. Before submitting any prompts, take a moment to consider the most likely and desired outcomes and explicitly ban them. By thinking preemptively, you can stop a whole class of potential bugs and issues before they even have a chance to happen. Now that you've learned to proactively prevent issues with negative constraints, let's talk about how to push Claude even further. Getting Claude to produce truly great code often means challenging its initial output, rather than just accepting the first draft. Let's start with how you can verify its work. A powerful technique is the verification challenge. You can ask Claude to Prove to me this works. Walk me through exactly what happens when a user adds a task with a due date and then reloads the page. This isn't just asking for an explanation, it forces Claude to trace the logic end to end, helping you ensure the proposed solution is robust and functional. Once functionality is verified, you can aim for elegance with a quality challenge. Try asking, knowing everything you know now, is this the most elegant solution? If not, show me what you'd do differently. You'll find that Claude frequently offers a cleaner, more refined solution when directly prompted to optimize its own work. Finally, if Claude's initial approach is fundamentally flawed, don't hesitate to use a reset challenge. Tell it, scrap what you just wrote, implement this from scratch using a better approach, explain what was wrong with the first version before you start. This powerful command lets you restart with a fresh perspective and guides Claude to completely rethink its solution. You've just run through a powerful mental checklist to refine your prompts and understand how to challenge Claude effectively. Now let's take a moment to consolidate everything we've covered and review the core strategies that will make you a master prompts engineer. We'll start by revisiting those fundamental ingredients. As you now know, every truly effective prompt is built on a foundation of 4 core ingredients: context, task, constraints, and output format. By ensuring you cover each of these with clarity and precision, you're setting Claude up for success every time. We also explored why many beginner prompts often fall short. It typically comes down to a lack of critical context, missing constraints, or failing to specify a clear output format, which then leads to those undesired or unexpected results. You've learned the incredibly powerful technique of using @references. By pointing Claude directly to existing files and code examples within your projects, you enable it to intelligently mirror patterns and adapt its output perfectly to your established codebase. And remember, a key habit to cultivate is the use of negative constraints. By explicitly telling Claude what it must not do, you effectively override its default behaviors and prevent a whole host of common mistakes and unwanted outcomes. Finally, you're now equipped to challenge Claude's output to get the absolute best results. Whether you're using verification, quality, or even reset challenges, you can consistently push Claude to deliver more robust, elegant, and thoroughly checked solutions. As we wrap up our journey with Claude Code, let's take a moment to reflect on the incredible progress you've made. You've truly transformed from a beginner to someone highly capable. Let's start by looking at your first major achievement. You now have the confidence to install and configure Claude Code with ease. Whether you're starting a brand new project or integrating it into an existing one, this foundational skill ensures you're always ready to leverage its power right from the start. Beyond installation, you've mastered managing session context using CLAUDE.md. This means you can keep your projects consistent and intelligent, ensuring Claude always understands the bigger picture. Crafting robust prompts is now second nature to you. You know how to provide clear context, define tasks, set constraints, and specify output formats, leading to precise and effective results every time. With all these new capabilities and your strong foundation, you're now ready to truly transform your coding process. To maximize Claude's potential, remember that effective use is an iterative journey, a continuous loop designed to make your workflow smarter with every interaction. Let's recap the core steps of this powerful cycle, starting with the crucial first stage. You always begin by defining your goals, clearly articulating the desired outcome before starting any task or writing any code. This ensures Claude understands precisely what you want to achieve, laying a solid foundation for the entire process. Next, you leverage context by providing all relevant project details and critical rules in your Claude.md. Remember to continuously refine these documents after each session, making Claude smarter over time.
Thanks for watching. If you like this, you'll love Zenva Academy. 300 courses where you learn AI by building real apps. Links in the description.